serving the Republic of the Philippines for more than 75 years. Ito po ang Presidential Broadcast Service.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang, and here are the news. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Saturday emphasized the vital role of the youth in accelerating the green transition. In his message on International Youth Day, Marcos said the young population, who serve as both the trailblazer of the modern world and hope of the future, has an important part to play in attaining a more sustainable economy. This year's annual observance of International Youth Day carries the theme, Green Skills for Youth Towards Sustainable World. President Marcos said a youth's role in undertaking ecological initiatives must be aggressively pushed to ensure the full realization of everyone's desire to have a healthier home we all deserve. Here is Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
I would like to greet the National Youth Commission on your 28th anniversary. From the Kabataan Barangay created during the time of my father, we have continued to uplift the youth sector of our country. In my time as congressman, I authored Republic Act 8044, the law that created the National Youth Commission in 1995. I also authored, in my time as senator, Republic Act 10742, or the SK Reform Law of 2015. With these two landmark laws for the Filipino youth, the National Youth Commission supervised the return of SK leaders of our country in 2018. On the National Youth Commission's celebration of the International Youth Day 2023, I commend you for your initiative to gather our SK leaders together with our ROTC Corps commanders, our government cadets from the PMA, PNPA, PMMA, PPSA, and from the OCS of the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Coast Guard. We are all partners in guiding, inspiring, and leading the millions of Filipino youth towards strengthening this republic, to mobilize them during disasters and emergencies, countering rebel youth recruitment, to defend all our people and the Republic. Mabuhay ang National Youth Commission, ang SK, at lahat ng kabataan, ang mga tunay na pag-asa ng ating bayan. Mga makabagong leader na kabataan para sa ating makabagong Pilipinas.
On Friday, the United Nations said the youth's green skills are essential to a successful transition to the green economy. The UN defines green skills as knowledge, abilities, values, and attitudes needed to live and develop and support a sustainable and resource-efficient society. According to data released by the International Labour Organization, a green transition could yield 8.4 million jobs for young people by 2040. If current trends pass, more than 60% of young people may lack the skills required to thrive in the green economy.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has approved the National Security Policy, or NSP 2023 to 2028, to harmonize government efforts and make the Philippines a free, united, secure, peaceful, resilient, and prosperous nation. Under Executive Order, or EO 37, inked by President Marcos on August 10, all national government agencies, or NGAs, and instrumentalities, including government-owned or controlled corporations, or GOCCs, are directed to adopt the NSP 2023 to 2028 in the formulation and implementation of their security-related strategies and programs. Local government units, or LGUs, are encouraged to adopt the National Security Policy. EO 37 designates the National Security Council, or NSC, Secretariat whenever necessary. to provide technical assistance and support to government agencies and other entities in the formulation of policies and strategies affecting national security. In coordination with various NGAs, GOCCs, and LGUs, the National Security Advisor, or NSA, is mandated to conduct a periodic assessment and submit reports to the President and the NSC on the implementation of the NSP 2023 to 2028. The NSP 2023 to 2028 was formulated to provide guidance and a comprehensive approach to improve security sector governance and address national security challenges in coordination in consultation with key government agencies and instrumentalities with the participation of various stakeholders. The approval is aimed at ensuring that national security efforts are responsive, complementary to the development goals and objectives set in the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. The funding requirements for the implementation of EO 37 will be charged against current and available appropriations of concerned agencies, subject to pertinent budgeting, accounting, and auditing laws, rules, and regulations. In the succeeding years, the budget will be included in the Annual General Appropriations Act, subject to the usual budget preparation process. EO 37, which was made public on Saturday, takes effect immediately upon publication in the Official Gazette or a newspaper of general circulation.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. should be credited for upping the ante with regard to the West Philippine Sea issue because it raises public awareness and created an urgency for the nation to strengthen its military capability, a political analyst said on Saturday. Expressing his views on the recent developments in the West Philippine Sea in Quezon City News Forum, Professor Renato De Castro, a political analyst from the De La Salle University, said that the Philippines has prepared for China's future moves as it seeks to take control of the West Philippine Sea or the water within the first island chain. The Philippines has to build up the Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP and the Philippine Coast Guard, he said, underscoring, however, that in order for the nation to do that, it must have a very stable economy, industries, and power generation capacity. Basically, the government has to convince every Filipino on the need to invest more on defense, the political analyst pointed out. This should be incorporated in a national security strategy, which, in the case of the current administration, can cover about 5 to 6 years, he said, saying that, but it will be the beginning. So, the Chinese 1,000 miles journey begins with a single step. President Marcos made a pronouncement in the past that he won't preside over any process that will abandon even a square inch of territory of the Republic of the Philippines to any foreign power. He said the Philippines will continue to be a friend to all and an enemy to none.
Dateline Malacañang.
A political analyst on Saturday said exploring other mechanisms instead of resorting to the use of force will serve the Philippines' interest in dealing with China at this time with regard to the West Philippine Sea issue. In a news forum in Quezon City, Dr. Froilan Calilong, professor from the University of the Santo Tomas Political Science Department, was asked if he sees that the current situation in the West Philippine Sea would result in an actual shooting war and loss of lives. Although the Philippines has a history of fighting oppression and colonization, Calilong said that right now, the international law and international environment dictate that it is better to pursue aspects or prospects for cooperation rather than resort to the path going to war. What is obvious, Calilong said, is that China is exploring or gauging the resilience of the Philippines to upset Filipino authorities until the next incursion or the next provocation happens. The good thing, he added, is that the water cannon firing incident near the Ayungin Shoal has been widely publicized, stoked domestic interest, heightening the sense of nationalism among Filipinos, and at the same time, made the incident known to the international community about China's aggression and disregard of international law. Tensions escalated more than a week ago between the Philippines and China after the China Coast Guard blocked and fired water cannons at Philippine supply vessel delivering food, water, and fuel to troops stationed on BRP Sierra Madre, a rusty World War II era ship was intentionally grounded by the Philippine Navy at Ayungin Shoal. China has been claiming the South China Sea almost in its entirety, including the West Philippine Sea. The Hague-based Permanent Court of Arbitration invalidated in 2016 China's claim, based on the so-called Nine-Dash Line, a landmark ruling ignored by the Asian economic giant.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine Presidential Communications Office, or PCO, is set to sign a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, with its partner agencies for a Media and Information Literacy, or MIL, campaign to address concerns over disinformation and misinformation. The ceremonial signing of the MOU will be held at Hilton Manila in Pasay City on August 14, Communications Secretary Cheloy Garafil said in a statement on Saturday. Garafil said joining PCO in the campaign are the Department of Education, or DepEd, the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, the Department of the Interior and Local Government, or DILG, and the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD. Garafil said the MIL would be integrated into the higher education curriculum, community-based training programs, and family-oriented programs. She added that social media companies and their platforms are also expected to collaborate with the government by lending the tools and holding training to fight disinformation and misinformation. In March, Garafil said fighting fake news would be one of the PCO's priorities, noting that the PCO and the Office of the President had been victims of fake news. In June, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said in his speech at the International Conference of Information Commissioners that fake news should have no place in modern society and that his administration would undertake a media and information literacy campaign which shall be digital, multimedia, and youth-oriented.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, or DHSUD, has hit the ground running after being tapped as head of the Interagency Council for the Pasig River Urban Development, or IAC PRUD, by virtue of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s Executive Order 35. According to an agency news release on Friday, Secretary Jose Rizalino Acuzar and other key DHSUD officials have started inspecting key areas along the Pasig River and subsequently laid out plans on how to implement the President's order, which was signed on July 25. Acuzar initially checked portions of the historical river in Manila, particularly at the back of the Central Post Office, which is being eyed as pilot area for mixed-use development and tourism spot, and at the Parola compound in Tondo for the affected informal settler families, or ISFs. The DHSUD said Acuzar has already met with Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA Chair Roman Duartes, Vice Chair of the IAC PRUD, to discuss the Council's initial steps to put the order's provisions into accountable strategies for the member agencies. Under EO 35, the Secretaries of the Department of Public Works and Highways, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Department of the Interior and Local Government, Department of Tourism, Department of Transportation, Department of Finance, and Department of Budget and Management, the Chairperson of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, General Manager of the Philippine Ports Authority, or PPA, Commandant of the Philippine Coast Guard, and General Manager of the Laguna Lake Development Authority, and the Chief Executive Officer of the Tourism Infrastructure and Enterprise Zone Authority were named as council members. The National Housing Authority will serve as the Secretariat. The IACPRUD is tasked primarily to facilitate and ensure the full rehabilitation of the banks along the Pasig River water system and nearby water systems in order to provide alternative transportation, propel economic opportunities, and boost tourism activities. EO35 directs the Council to formulate a Pasig River Urban Development Plan, which shall serve as the blueprint for the full rehabilitation of the river with the end view of realizing its full potential for mixed-use development, transportation, recreation, tourism, and sustainable human settlement, taking into consideration its historic and cultural value. It also tasked the Council to study, prepare, and implement a comprehensive shelter plan for massive relocation of ISFs and other unauthorized or unlawful occupants along the Pasig River banks, including identification of suitable relocation sites, strategies for economic and social integration for ISFs, and long-term solutions to address ongoing migration into the riverbanks. The EO authorizes the IACPRUD to accept grants, contributions, donations, endowments, bequests, or gifts in cash or in kind from local and foreign sources in support of the formulation and implementation of the Pasig River Urban Development Plan, subject to existing laws, rules, and regulations. To monitor the progress of the rehabilitation, the IACPRUD is directed to submit to the Office of the President through the Office of the Executive Secretary a quarterly status report.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, on Friday reported that no Filipino was hurt in the devastating wildfires on the island of Maui, Hawaii. Citing official information from Hawaii and State Department authorities, DFA Undersecretary Eduardo Jose de Vega said no foreign national has so far been reported affected by the blazes. Hawaii authorities said around 1,000 people are still unaccounted for, while the death toll has climbed to 55 as the fires tore through Maui. Local reports said mass evacuations continue for visitors and residents. Hawaii Governor Josh Green, meanwhile, said the blazes are likely the largest natural disaster in the state's history.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine and Irish governments have agreed to meet annually to further enhance bilateral cooperation. Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, Secretary Enrique Manalo and Ireland Ambassador to the Philippines William Carlos signed a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, establishing a bilateral consultations mechanism, or BCM, for the Philippines and Ireland. Under the MOU, delegations from the Philippines and Ireland will meet annually either in person or through teleconferencing to discuss cooperation in regional matters of mutual concern. The meeting will be held on an alternating basis in Manila and Dublin, or a third location such as the sidelines of an international conference if deemed necessary by both sides. At these meetings, the Philippines and Ireland are expected to review and evaluate the state of political, economic, consular, and cultural relations between the two countries and exchange insights on international affairs. The MOU was signed as both countries celebrated this year the 39th anniversary of the establishment of Philippines-Ireland diplomatic relations.
Dateline Malacañang.
A Japanese startup is piloting an artificial intelligence-powered, or AI, disaster management tool in the Philippines to help provide real-time information in times of emergency. The initiative is part of a public-private partnership promotion program between SPECT Incorporated and the Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA, to mitigate risks and save more lives in disaster-prone countries like Japan and the Philippines. SPECT Incorporated, under JICA's cooperation framework, has partnered with the Office of Civil Defense and the Department of the Interior and local government to use the AI tool as trial in disaster prevention operations. JICA said the AI would make judgments based on social media information data, while a human team on duty rechecks and verifies the information. The information is then channeled through a dashboard, smartphone notifications, and email alerts. The technology is currently used by more than 100 government organizations, including police and fire stations, and 90% of news organizations in Japan. The technology visualizes the crisis using data from social media, climate information, river or road camera, and people traffic, among others. It has primary check features based on sentence and image analysis, as well as credibility scores, to help discard fake news and eliminate them from the data. JICA has been introducing Japanese innovations to its partner countries under the JICA PPP promotion program. The scheme allows Japanese private companies to share their ideas and innovations in solving society's problems in various sectors such as agriculture, education, and health.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, the Philippine Fisheries Development Authority, or PFDA, is warning the public against a social media account using the name and photo of its acting general manager, lawyer Glenn Pangapalan. The agency issued the warning on Facebook after receiving reports of the Facebook page GM Glenn bearing the name and photos of Pangapalan. The agency urged the public to immediately report encounters with suspicious activities related to fake accounts to the PFDA Public Information Division at telephone number 02-8925-6139 or email address pid@pfda.gov.ph. A government-owned and controlled corporation attached to the Department of Agriculture, the PFDA was created to promote the development of the fishing industry through the provision of post-harvest infrastructure facilities and essential services that improve efficiency in the handling and distribution of fish and fishery products and enhance their quality. Presidential Decree 977 created the Philippine Fish Marketing Authority on August 11, 1976 to address and provide solutions to the fishing industry's post-harvest problems. Executive Order Number 772 issued on February 8, 1982 renamed it as PFDA with expanded functions and powers and revised constitutions of the Board of Directors.
Dateline Malacañang.
Finally, for Dateline Malacañang, the national government subsidies for government-owned and controlled corporations, or GOCCs, more than doubled in June. Data from the Bureau of the Treasury, or BTR, obtained over the weekend showed that subsidies to GOCCs during the month amounted to 26 billion Philippine peso, up by more than 200% from the 7.3 billion Philippine peso in May this year. It was also higher than the 13.3 billion Philippine peso subsidies provided to GOCCs in June last year. Treasury data showed that the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, or PhilHealth, was the biggest recipient of the budgetary support, amounting to 15 billion Philippine peso. The National Irrigation Administration received 3.5 billion pesos, second on the list, while the Bases Conversion and Development Authority came in third with subsidies amounting to 2.9 billion Philippine peso. Other top recipient GOCCs include the Philippine Insurance Corporation, 1.8 billion pesos, Philippine Fisheries Development Authority, 853 million pesos, National Food Authority, 471 million pesos, and Philippine Children's Medical Center, 221 million pesos. For the first half of the year, the national government subsidies to GOCCs already amounted to 63.70 billion pesos. NIA got the biggest subsidy, which amounted to 21.8 billion pesos. It was followed by PhilHealth with 15.3 billion pesos, Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation 5 billion pesos, and National Food Authority 4.5 billion pesos.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this has been Bea Gaza.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.